Have you ever had games where it just feels like this? And no matter what you do, the enemy team doesn't even let you play? Well, today we're going to be talking about whether there's too much crowd control abilities in Marvel Rivals and how bad is it. Crowd control is important in team-based hero shooters like Marvel Rivals, but what exactly is crowd control? Simply put, crowd control, or CC, refers to any ability or mechanic that temporarily takes away the player's ability to take an action, whether that's being stunned, slowed, or knocked back. CC is designed to create opportunities for teams to capitalize on openings and execute coordinated plays. It's a core gameplay element that adds a strategic depth, but also has the potential to make the experience frustrating when it's not really balanced right. And crowd control is normally categorized into two types. That's either hard CC or soft CC. Hard CC effects completely stop you from acting, such as stuns, while soft CCs impair your movement abilities without fully disabling your character's abilities. So understanding what type of CC that you have versus what you're up against is very important when it comes to playing the game effectively. But let's be honest, when you're on the receiving end of crowd control, it can get very annoying. Now in Rivals, CC is pretty much everywhere, and I don't want to say that every hero has CC, but most characters do have some type of crowd controlling abilities, some stronger than others. So when we look at the types of hard CC in the game, we look at examples such as Winter Soldier's Grapple, Wolverine's Kidnaps, and Penny Parker's Stun, which is on a 3-second cooldown, by the way, as well as Luna Snow's Freezes, Mantis's Sleeps. You get the point. There's a lot of these things. What most of these CCs share in common is that the majority of them require some degree of skill in order for them to be executed. It's not that I'm just going to point and click and you get instantly CC'd. No, there does need to be some type of aim involved, which in a way also accounts for player error. However, the issue arises that when multiple types of crowd control can exist on the same type of team, you can have 6 types of very hard CC. Therefore, it becomes very difficult for you to initiate into a fight, and it just feels that you will be stun locked into eternity without necessarily having or using or sacrificing a defensive ultimate for you to secure that engagement, which in my opinion doesn't necessarily need to be the case. The problem here is that because there's so much of it, where do we draw the line? Let's face it, nobody really likes being stuck in a stun lock, unable to move, fight back. There's too much of it can make a game feel very oppressive and take away the sense of agency that makes the gameplay feel fun to begin with. Being hit with consecutive CC effects with no real chance to react can make gameplay feel a lot more like a punishment than an actual challenge, especially when teams are able to coordinate multiple levels of crowd control. And just to give you an example, say you're running a Winter Soldier into a Luna Snow, Mantis, and Wolverine composition, and you're on defense. And I'm pretty sure you're all starting to get an idea of what map I'm talking about. It's that Shibuya map where the first choke point is incredibly horrendous to really get past. What the opposing team can coordinate is that the Winter Soldier can just calm it in, saying, I'm going to hook the tank in, I'm going to do the 180 hook, and I'm going to push him back into the team, stun lock him so that we can get rid of him very quickly. Especially when you have a Winter Soldier who's going to grapple your tank, then Wolverine is going to kidnap him all the way into your backline, and then he's just going to be thrown on with all of your other types of CC, especially if you have like Penny Parker or Mantis or even Luna Snow. We're just going to throw their CC at them, and that tank is going to be focused down almost immediately, and you won't even have to take it that far. A Winter Soldier into a Mantis Sleep or a Penny Parker Stun is going to pretty much be enough to secure that elimination. It makes pushing that choke very difficult, and you have to use some type of other counter utility, most likely an ultimate or a support ultimate, or maybe an effective flanker to take out the supports or the other characters. But even if you manage to take out one support, like Luna Snow or Mantis, you still have to worry about their Wolverine or their Penny Parker or Winter Soldier. And you start to get the point where even if I take out one type of or one layer of crowd control, I then have to start thinking about what are the other layers for me to consider. If all of them can crowd control me, who is the priority? Is it their supports? Well, obviously, because they're the ones who are keeping the team alive. But if their supports are the problem and Penny's already set up in that choke point, don't I have to take Penny out of the fight as well or get rid of her nest? It also makes diving or trying to rescue your tank very difficult, because if there is a proper defensive setup, and I'm talking with the example of utilizing Penny Parker, and she already has her nest set up, going after to save that tank is pretty much suicide at that point, because there's no real way or no safe way for you to be able to counter that. Even if you have a flying character, it might be difficult if, let's say, if they have a hit scan character to chase after that tank to save them. So when you get to that level, you start to ask yourself this question is that what do I really do? It just kind of feels like I can't really do anything without using support ultimate or trying to get an elimination or relying on my flankers to do something. That takes away a few things from the Vanguard player who is expected from their team to initiate the team fight. It also puts a lot of pressure on DPS to go into to try and flank and outplay. And there's also the element of capitalizing on the enemy team's mistakes, because in every game, there's a certain number of mistakes that you're allowed to do, because the more mistakes that you do, the more likely you will lose that game. And as you climb higher, those number of mistakes start to become less and less, because even if you make 1 or 2 mistakes, that can snowball you into an entire loss for that round. But then the solution here is that we shouldn't be removing crowd control entirely, because crowd control is necessary. Despite the frustration it can bring, CC is a very vital part of keeping aggressive and dive-heavy playstyles in check. Without it, certain heroes or other types of strategies can really dominate the game. Heroes with high mobility like Spider-Man or Black Panther, they normally have a lot of burst damage, and you need CC to keep them from running wild. Or you are just running Namor with a Luna Snow team up, because that's also very effective against flankers. So now adding another layer is that if they have a Namor to watch out for flankers, and assuming that Namor is competent and he's running the Luna Snow team up, it's going to be very difficult to even flank them to be able to secure some type of advantage for your team. So the neutral part of the game becomes very, very, very difficult. So here I have to start trying to bait their crowd control utility in order for me to make some type of engagement. So I see that their Winter Soldiers just use a hook and he's whiffed, so that's gone an 8-second cooldown. Penny Parker is still there, so that's 3 seconds. I'm not going to consider that. Mantis and Luna Snow, they still have their crowd control abilities in check, so I need to consider those 2 factors. Out of 6 people, I know that 3 people have crowd control abilities. Now, I can deal with a Penny Parker stun. That's no big deal because it's quite a short stun. It can go away. Now, I realize that they have a few other members on their team. Let's assume that their other members on their other tank or their other DPS on their team are running DPS characters with no real means of crowd control abilities. So I just have to worry about the Mantis and Luna Snow. Now, they are going to waste that on me if I try engaging them directly or if I try engaging on their Vanguard. So here I will have to position myself in a way where I'm putting pressure onto their Vanguard for them to basically feel that, oh, I need to use some type of ability to stop this person. And I can position myself either behind a wall or in a doorway or in a corridor where I want them to throw that utility onto me and miss, and for it to go on cooldown. That's the type of counterplay that you have to start considering, especially when you're faced against CC heavy compositions. But does that really solve the problem? Personally, I don't necessarily think so, because there's not much natural cover, especially because of the whole destructible environments. You can beta out maybe once or twice, but that environment that you're hiding behind is going to get destroyed if it's a destructible piece of environment, and it just makes your attack all the more difficult. At the end of the day, Rivals needs a balanced approach to crowd control, enough to keep things strategic without making the game feel oppressive. The devs have to consider factors like ability cooldowns, durations, and counterplay to ensure that CC remains fair and fun. So if we take our 2 latest characters that have been introduced into the game, with Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman, they both have some type of crowd control baked into their kit. I would say Invisible Woman CC is better than Mr. Fantastic, especially because she can either choose to pull you in or push you out. One thing that I think that they should have added instead of the Invisible Woman's displacement is maybe add some type of cleanse because of the already existing amount of crowd control in the game. Now, you can argue that her barrier is a type of cleanse because it can block incoming crowd control effects because she just has to aim at the character, point and click. However, it's not necessarily cleanse for a character that's already been stunned. I think that we need either abilities that can cleanse crowd control or abilities that can mitigate it to some extent. I don't want to remove it entirely because, like I said, it's very important. But adding a hero or an ability that can mitigate some type of oncoming crowd control effects would allow for more counterplay rather than it just being, I have better crowd control and therefore you lose. And what's concerning here is that does that set an expectation for new heroes to also have some type of crowd control ability baked into their kit as well? Where do we draw the line, or when do we draw the line with that? It's not just a displacement ability, it's also the fact that her ultimate is a really strong heal and has some type of crowd control baked into it. Is that a direction that we can expect for future strategists to take, or is this just a one-off? We'll have to wait and see. But in the end, crowd control is here to stay, and it's a vital part of Marvel Rivals. At the moment, it feels fair and it is outplayable because it is a necessary evil to keep aggressive strategies in check. However, it's also very important to avoid overloading the game with repetitive CC options when introducing new characters. Understanding how CC works and playing around it is the key takeaway here, and I think with some type of thoughtful tuning, it can remain as a part of an engaging and strategic part of the game without being a primary source of frustration. Until then, enjoy getting frozen, pulled, grappled, kidnapped, stunned, and slept in your matches.